individuals is to get us out of the mind, the viewers out of the mind, and into a sense of what is the experience that is experienced from someone who looks at life from an awake place. And for me, the process, for me, for this body, for this particular individual expression here, a very particular process happened. And so I want to talk first about what is the I, and I can talk about this now from having gone through the whole process and then looking back at the whole thing. So the I, usually the way we view the I and the way we sense it and feel it, it's somehow a very structured thing. We can go and say, oh, I look inside or I feel inside. And so the thing is, you go inside and it has kind of borders around it. And you kind of can sense, it's not, maybe it's very physical for a lot of people, but also it's kind of a vibrational and energetic borders. So I go inside and this is how I feel and this is what I know, and inspirations may come from this, but it's very much from a closed space. You see, the I, what we, this kind of a structure, what I'm trying to point out is never right on about anything. It comes up with these ideas, but there is really nothing to it. In the end,
so all the ideas are arbitrary. It's just kind of like arbitrary in the meaning, like
all arbitrary.
From expression to expression, from person to person. It's totally, completely arbitrary. As one person, as one expression, it seems like, okay, it's tied to what I believed yesterday, and so it's tied to a chain of conditioning. And maybe it's not arbitrary because it keeps coming around and somehow I can't shake it.
Right. But wherever it comes from, that is arbitrary. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And what we feel today, we may not feel the same tomorrow. And, what one person says, one thing is, the same word for another person would mean something totally different. So there's really no true basis of anything that the way we operate in life. And I'll show you this with my visual. Let me say one more thing, because like when we say arbitrary, it's kind of got a color to it. Like, oh gosh, this is no substance. Toss it. With arbitrary, what I mean, or what is being meant, is that on the duality scale, it can go either way. It can go all the way to the left, it can go all the way to the right, and all the nuances in between. So that it's not that it doesn't mean anything, or it's not true or not real. It just means it can have any kind of color.
Say what is right and left, and what does that mean?
Well, positive or negative, light or dark, good or bad.
Yeah, but so many people say that those things are inseparable, that light and dark appear at once because one has no meaning without the other.
Right. On the duality scale, that's true. I mean, it's on the scale, right? It's like both belong to the same bar. It's on the same.
Because we know you can't go to all light. We've all been trying to be always in the light, and it just can't happen.
Right. But what I'm saying is with arbitrary just means the way I talk about it. It could be on the scale between good and bad. It could be 100% bad, or it could be 50% bad, or it could be 25% good. It's the same scale, it's on the same level. But arbitrary, it could change. Today it could be very bad, and tomorrow the exact same thing could be just half as bad. Or
because your headache is gone, right?
Well, something like that, right? Or to another person, the exact same thing would not even be looked at bad at all. It could be very good.
Maybe it doesn't even show up on the scale because they're totally not interested. Like, it doesn't come on radar.
Exactly. It may not even show on the scale at all. It may not have any choose for them at all. That's what I mean with arbitrary. Not that it's not real. Yeah. And that's what all of life is about in this way. That it's very much individual, and it's very much according to whatever lens we're looking through at any given moment. See, it's not just for that particular person. At any moment, anything can change in any way. And there's no substance and no basis then to anything.
Yeah, well, that's the great part, because that's pure creativity. creativity can happen in any moment, in any way, anything.
Yes,
it's just totally, your imagination is the only limit, right?
Exactly. And that's where the beauty is. But if somebody is kind of, and that's where the whole seeking seems to be starting. Yeah, if somebody is kind of always hanging on the very bad end, right? It's like there's this this wish to go more towards the good end. But then you are here. It's like everything has to have its place. And mind always tries to hook into, okay, this is bad, I want to get rid of this, and this is good, I want to hold on to this. But life isn't like this. Life is continuously a flow. And if something is not judged as bad, then whatever is happening can be there just as it is. And then I don't need something else. And then when something else happens and I'm hanging more on the good, so to say, side, right? And then I don't want to hold on to that, right? The one I want to push away, the other one I want to hold on to. But that also is not going to stay. It's going to go again. So everything can just be in a flow in life continuously, because that's really what it is. But mind is coming in and judging this and judging that. This it doesn't want, and this it wants. And in between, it's the,
So instead of events and objects, these things are a flow or a field.
Everything is a flow. Everything.
So then, in order to be a flow, in a way, they're imaginary. Both everything good and bad is imaginary. Is it worthwhile saying that?
Well, it's not so much. Well, you could say imaginary, but it's kind of just the lens the eye puts on something. It's kind of through. Life is happening regardless, but the eye puts a particular lens on certain situations, and that depends, of course, on the person, where they come from, their programming, their history.
But even
and all
that
of
lens is a lens that's on an apparent object, which is not really an object.
You need to let me get to my visual, because that's gonna make it more clear.
Let's do it.
So what happened to me, I believed in the eye to be a very solid structure that you could work with in order to improve certain conditions or ideas within the eye. So then life experience would be different, more positive, more wired on this side. So, but then I was hit with this knowing, which we talked about back then when we did our first interview. And the knowing was that there's nothing to us people at all. It was a very clear, very visceral as well as visual knowing that we as human beings, what we take ourselves to be, is just like an empty puppet, like an empty shell. There's nothing to us at all. Somehow we operate, but there is no substance to us.
In other words, we're the perfect actor. We can take on any part.
Well, there isn't a we. The acting is happening, but there isn't anyone doing it. There isn't a we acting. So what happened when that visual hit, when that was seen, somehow something inside me, or somehow I knew that was true, had of course no idea what that meant. I mean, I was working on the eye all this time, and suddenly I was shown it's substanceless. So from then a breaking down process happened, which we also talked about last time. And I want to show now with these new little visuals, kind of silly, they look very childlike, but they will do the trick. So what happened for me was that one by one, different thoughts, different ideas, different concepts that I had about the first part that went was everything that I had studied. So the whole piece that I had studied, constellation work, healing work, how I knew life functioned, how we could improve things with people. All of that was kind of scrubbed out. I talked about that scrubbing out, right? And so it was like some kind of a force went in and scrubbed and pulled and kicked, and these pieces that I thought Margot.
The pieces of that boundary that what
you're in your head right now.
Oh yeah.
So everything, because that's all we know. We just know what we have studied, what we have known, the programs and patterns that were passed on from our lineage, from our ancestry, from our social structures. That's all we know. Our whole lives is set up by these ideas, concepts. We have to have a house, we have to have a job, we have to have, a good life is with a husband and a wife and children. These are all concepts. We don't ever think about this. Money is a concept. The way we eat food and everything is a concept. So one by one, these things were taken. And you see what happened with my nice little solid structure? It began having holes. Became more and more not solid. More and more flimsy, more and more collapsing. Look at this. What do you do when this nice I structure that we operate our lives out of, and we know how life functions and how it's done, and everything is this nice set way, if it all begins to collapse? Look at this.
Let me ask a question. So I mean, it's kind of like shocking.
To say the least.
To say the least, it's kind of like shocking. And so
terror-provoking.
There's something that happens where we have a bigger cone, and we say, oh, well, then it's like this.
Well, the impulse is you want to put stuff back in. Okay, well, let me do something in order to put this back in. Oh no, this whole, let me patch it up, right? So, for instance, you start. I'll show you something once this whole breaking down has happened. We feel these holes all the time because this is not really solid. It's just sensed to be solid. It's not really solid. I'm just using this right now to give you a sense, but what's really happening, I will show you in a moment. That is, there's really nothing ever there except, even now, with all people, there's nothing ever there except these little pieces of thoughts and ideas and patterns that life is operated through in order for us to know how life works according to our particular structure.
So somehow we fabricate all those little thoughts into this cone.
We don't fabricate them. They are there. I mean, we are born into this particular family system, into these social structures. They are given. They are there. They kind of resurrect themselves as a child is born. Some, for me, that thing was resurrected in the first 2 minutes after I was born. I had a regression done, and I saw how that happened. For other people, as their children, they can sustain that true sense of consciousness for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I've talked with people about that, where they didn't have a sense of any of structure. It was just life flowing through them freely, and it lasted for that many years into childhood. But eventually, these things will start piling up. Yeah, that's right. They will start piling up. But you see, and so when a person starts to sense these holes, it's known always that they're there. It's usually known there's really nothing to our eye. But usually it's so covered up and these structures are so tight and strong that it's not really perceived very often. But now more and more things are crumbling everywhere, and people are starting to sense more and more there's nothing really to me, or nothing really to this particular idea or to this particular setup. And so what they then try to do is immediately cover it up. Running to the TV, let's watch a movie, or let's call a friend and let's talk, or eat something. It's this sense of immensely dark hole being there, that's always there, trying to cover it up with something on the outside. Okay.
Is that the whole business of psychotherapy? I mean, these are the holes, and then people, and then we're saying, okay, well, with that hole like that, you can't function in society. Let's just patch it up and and send them off on their way.
These I structures, out of the way the whole life is set up right now, out of how we are viewing things. It cannot imagine that there is life possible without
those parts.
Without these parts, it can't imagine it. So then, people are diagnosed, with particular illnesses. They're given drugs, they're given whatever things to do. But this is all fiction. This is all made up. It's just nothing really solid to it. So the most preferred thing to do is help breaking this stuff down.
Oh yeah? No, but now let me get this straight. Like, it's like the whole has a feeling to it.
Well,
or some reason the whole.
Okay,
the feeling of the whole is like.
No, so if you look into a well and it's deep and dark and far, you don't know what's down there, right?
That's
if
scary,
there's something, so if you look down and really sense into this hole, into this darkness, into this emptiness, where is a feeling? It's just a knowing, shit, there's nothing there. And if I'm going to fall in there, what's going to happen to me? The body, the I. It's not really a feeling per se, the way we usually work with feelings or talk about feelings. It's the deepest of the knowing that you could be eliminated, destroyed, if you fall into this. The deepest of knowing that is, you have no idea what's going to happen if you jump into this well, or if somebody pushes you and you're free falling into this hole. You have no idea what's going to happen.
Or if the ground gives away around the edges,
Oh, yes,
it's
right.
going in, that's what's actually happening. The ground is giving away,
This is what's happening. All the time anyway. You see, life is doing this all the time anyway. Anytime something, I was talking this about the grid as well, right? When I was talking with my 2D grid, anytime these pieces are being pulled out, there's incredible terror of the I trying to hold on and putting something back in there. But anytime something doesn't go our way, something goes against what the I would have liked, or how the I knows how life is, and suddenly, people have invested years and years into a job, for instance, and that was the security. They knew they were going to get a pension fund at the end, and many people are now out on the street without a job, and they have nothing then to hold on to. The fear and terror they experience is immense. It's because the structure that this is going to be safe and for the rest of their life they're going to be taken care of is ripped out of their whole conceptual framework, and now they have a huge hole there, and they don't know what else is going to happen. They can't find a job anymore. Their whole safety net has just crumbled, and all there is left is a hole. They're free falling into this well of darkness, and they can't put another structure in there. They can't plug it up with anything else. So life does this ripping apart all the time in an attempt to show that there's something else there. And the I is so set on keeping its structure together because it doesn't know anything else. It doesn't know how to do life from without that framework, from without that structure. So it's trying the hardest to hold on. And what I'm saying is there is a whole other way of doing life, or how life can be done, that has nothing to do with any kind of a structure. It's possible, and the mind and the I cannot conceive of that. That's why it's trying to hold on so tightly to everything that it knows. And more we can see how so many structures in life are breaking down: the banking system, the insurance, our investments, the pension funds, the housing. Yeah, people are losing housing and the investments left and right. It's creating these holes in the way we in the West particularly have set up how life is supposed to be. And it's all based on concepts and ideas. There's really no reality, intrinsic reality to any of it. Life can be done without any of these structures, which I am proof of since 4 years. I live very decently, and I'm not plugged in anymore to any of these structures. So life is very much possible, but the I can't conceive of it. So the wish or the desire or the intent to speak about what happened to me is for the I that most people are operating out of get a sense if something is falling away and breaking to pieces, that they don't have to hold on so hard and try to replace it with another concept or idea or another, stable thing, because there is another way to do life, and it's so much better. It's so much easier. And to let things crumble. If they crumble, let them crumble. And I will show afterwards why I say that and what that means and what actually sustains us. Because this is not sustained by anything. The I doesn't even exist.
Well, what comes to me is pretty strong. Like it just feels like, okay, all this structure is because we're living our life as a concept. We're taking our life as a concept. Mm-hmm. Just as something fixed, I got it right. Now I got my life right. I got my degree. Exactly. I got my family raised. I got my pension going on. Yeah. Fixed. And then to say that there's another way, a better way, well, it's not a concept anymore. So it's a whole different
When all of this breaks down,
it's a whole different context. Yes. So then to say that somebody could, you can't live that other life until you get out of that old conceptual context where we fix everything.
Well, you can't get out. It can't be just broken down. The I can be seen through to be of no consequence. And when that happens, life just starts happening in a different way. So I want to get...
It's a huge shift. It's huge.
It's like
night and day.
Like night and day. Yeah.
Nothing.
So I want to speak to what you just said. I think that was very, very valuable. So for instance, right, and I'm not cutting down the way life is structured and out of which ideas and concepts people are living out of. I mean, it has been very valid, and it's not really, people have not really set it up. Life set these structures up. Life set up these programs and the whole sense of an I out of which life is experienced. There isn't an I there ever.
That's beautiful because it's just a mysterious happening. Yes. Because I always used to say, well, we build fixed lives in a medium that's not fixed, and we do it with concepts, you know. And even just to have a continuity, to say who I was yesterday is who I am today, we got to have a concept of who I am. Right. Because that's the only thing that's going to be fixed. Because otherwise, I mean, and so we do that. But we don't. You just said we don't build fixed lives. They're there. They're unfolding. They're happening. Yeah. And there's no we that's doing anything. Yeah. So then that is really a mystery.
Yeah. 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 To the I, everything is a mystery. But I wanted to tell you, for instance, and I give you an example from my family situation. And this, of course, applies to anyone at any given point in time. So my parents were very poor, and they started a business under very particular situations, and they had to work very, very hard. And their whole goal was to work so hard so us children, there's 4 of us, have a better life. And that's, most of us adults can relate to that kind of a thing. You work really hard so life can go on better for your kids, and you yourself have a better life, particularly from the era my parents came from.
Somehow I just read something that I want to stick in here and share a little bit, but somebody was saying, like, as long as you dote on your children, and it's a strong thing to dote on them or be doted on, and whatever that means. Doting means care for. You don't face your own life. So then you can just transfer that. It's a transference to not really face. That
particular thing is just a pattern that a lot of people or, individual expressions of life have bought into. And that's that's still a given today, that you do whatever you can in order so life can go on better for the children, for better or for worse for the children, because they may not like what they're given.
In other words, you're transferring them your betterness, and also you're transferring all your fears and insecurities too at the same time.
Right. But anyway, regardless, and that is a great subject, to touch upon maybe some other time, that whole parents-child transferring things. So anyway, my parents worked really, really hard. I was not raised by my mother. I was given away as an infant to be raised by somebody else because my mother had no time. She had to work. And I basically didn't know either of them, not my mother nor my father. And saw my mother just, in the evenings, she would come and put out clothes for us for the next day and make sure that everything went fine for the day. That was basically more or less the only connection I had.
You mean like you'd be already asleep?
No, I would be still, and this is just story. Okay, I'm just telling you that it has no consequence whatsoever. This is just the story. Actually, I don't even want to get into this.
Okay, let's just skip it.
Yeah, the whole thing, what I wanted to say is that my parents worked so hard. They didn't really have much time with each other as husband and wife. They had hardly any time, if none whatsoever. My dad had really hardly any time with us as children. So they just worked and worked and worked and worked. And that was their belief, the concept, the idea of what to do in order to build a better life. My father died in a car accident at 42. And so this whole idea of preparing for the future, making things better for the future is a concept because the future never comes or may never come. There is only now. In each moment, there is only now. So there is this drive that drives all of us, or the I, all the time. It's based on this structure, on this concept, on this who I am and how do I remain safe and how do I remain, move forward towards better, that it misses the moment that something is happening. So my parents didn't really see us children because mind was always busy with work and with money and with earning and with keeping things together and improving. And this is the case with most people's lives. Whatever is happening in each moment is not seen. They don't have time to really eat and savor their food, and they don't have time to really sit and feel their body. They don't have time to see the flowers and sense what it feels like to go for a walk. Mind is always busy. These programs that makes...
Doesn't even mean thoughts when you say mind is always busy. It just means even if you're going for a walk, even if you're in the garden, it's a concept of a garden. In other words, you're saying, yep, this concept is beautiful. Okay,
right.
Next time we're going to plant roses over here, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I got it.
Rose is a concept, right? Eggplant. Yeah. All of these things are concepts. It's like the intrinsicity of anything is always missed because everything has a label. Everything has a concept. So we walk around the garden. You showed me all your beautiful vegetables and herbs. But it's all a concept. We didn't really link up one-on-one with what's growing there, what's really underneath. Yeah, we just
Should I go pick one? I'll bring one in here.
No, I'm just saying. You see, I was just trying to say that there's these concepts of us, what we think is safe, what we think is a good life, what we think is perfect or, valuable or meaningful. But they're all concepts. What's really the essence of everything is missed all the time because of these structures running. Okay? So the process continued for me, and it was a process for about 6 months. The other thing that kind of collapsed was the whole sense of how to earn money. Because when I walked away from constellation work, I also walked away from my livelihood, my income. So I had to figure out how else to earn a living. And it's a whole other story. I couldn't get, I was going to start a new business. I couldn't get that off the ground. And I started looking for jobs. And I realized the whole insanity in the job market. How, for instance, when I was in Hawaii, 10 years prior, I earned in Hawaii, the salary is very low. So in Hawaii, 10 years prior, I earned $10 an hour, which was, a going rate then. And then 5 years ago, when I was looking for work in California, which is super high living cost, the going rate was between $8 and $10 an hour. Some jobs were said, well, you're lucky if you get $8 is a going rate. How can anyone live on $8 an hour? It's impossible. But that, again, is a concept. These are all concepts. How much money somebody should earn, how much money is someone's time worth, right? Somebody can work for just $6. I mean, in Central America and Mexico, I was traveling, it's $5 a day. You know, that's the going rate. And a doctor gets, what, $5,000 an hour or whatever. You know, there's these incredible
disparity.
Arbitrary numbers, right? There's a number scale, and one person's life is worth this, and another person's life is worth that, and or hour, right? It's like everything with these programs, with the I, everything is arbitrary. There is nothing makes any sense, really. So I was faced with this whole concept, you know, of money, with work, with what's right and what's not right. You know, these are all ideas. And we're all going.
So I think we can be clear that no new ideas come in. Never gets made sense of. You know,
nothing.
It never gets made sense of. Like there's never a scale where the worker at $5 a day and the doctor is going to equal out or something like that. That just
on that level,
wayside, right?
On that level, it doesn't. Nothing makes sense. That's the thing.
It never will, though.
And it never will.
That kind of sense is just not part of the scheme.
I mean, and another scheme is, you know, I was the whole renting market. I mean, you know, that's just another thing. So people rent houses from others because the way things are set up, they can't buy their own place for millions of people. That's the case. So they have to go and rent a house from somebody who somehow had enough money they could get money from the bank to buy something. But these renters are essentially paying the house for these owners. Like I was paying, you know, rent, and my landlord, you know, she became my friend. She's a very dear lady, but she told me out blank, she said, you know, if you wouldn't be renting from me, I couldn't afford this house. So the whole money structure, the way money is set up, is really fascinating. That there is this baseline of people who are used by those little higher line people in order to sustain a good life for them. But these are the bottom. They can never raise up unless some extraordinary circumstances occur to them.
Isn't it stability? Because if you had a job for 20 years, you could buy a house. But if you have a job 2 years...
At $8 an hour?
Well, I
mean, really, the whole thing is so intricate. At $8 an hour or minimum wage, you can never afford a house. And the thing is with all of these concepts, what I saw was, you know, and this was all part of the process of breaking things down, seeing through things, and then on my travels, traveling around in these countries where there was this incredible poverty and this incredible richness, I was shown this even more, how the whole system, the whole mind structure, this particular mind structure is set up to help certain ones raise their lifestyle and better lives and keep others down, that they can never really raise themselves up. And that's just how it is. But it's a concept. It's just an idea through which life is experienced. And it cannot ever change from this I level, because the I will always look out for itself first. I gotta be safe. I gotta have this. I need this. And
I gotta keep my investments.
Whatever it is, yeah. And the I will always look towards, and it has to look towards others, how it can supply its own structure and its own wellness and its own
energy.
Yeah. So that it can live good. And it doesn't, the I, because it sees everyone as separate, as individual things, it doesn't see that it's all connected. Everything is connected and life just flows through each person. So to keep somebody down doesn't even occur to somebody who doesn't operate from this I structure anymore, because it sees that life just flows through everyone.
So to bring those people up doesn't really occur to that person either, because there is no really up and down, you know.
Right.
And
it's just me.
They are.
It's just I. It's just I all the time. Everything revolves around the I. So, you know, this breaking down continued. And look, I mean, there's now very little left. And so what that then looked like for me as an experience in life was that what before felt solid and meaningful and purposeful, there was just nothing to it anymore. The whole money thing kind of started collapsing as far as how it operated and how, that it was a very solid structure. The whole healing work that by then, within 4 or 5 months, that was really collapsed. I mean, I couldn't even, if I would have had to talk about my healing work, and I'd studied this for over 10 years and, was very versed in this, it was gone, the pieces that belonged to that particular idea of doing constellation work and healing work, they were gone.
It's just because you saw there was no substance to it, right?
I didn't see anything. It was just, these things were just taken. It was a scrubbing out that happened. I didn't do anything to it. This just all was taken, one by one was scrubbed out. But taken,
what does it mean? It means like there was no interest anymore, right? I mean,
well, the no interest is the effect. What it felt like is, you see, these are all ideas.
Right.
They're all ideas, so they can be scrubbed out, and life scrubs them out all the time anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, ideas are there. You can still remember them, right? You know what they are, but I mean, somehow there's no interest in going into that, or it doesn't feel like your life's work anymore, or I mean...
all of that.
Yeah.
All of that. Big hole.
What does it mean, taken, though? I mean,
there was no access anymore. Well, no, there was no access. It's like I couldn't even speak about it. It was like...
oh, yeah?
It was like the file, these kinds of things are like files. To talk about it was like I couldn't plug into anything anymore. It was like everything was gone. I couldn't grasp into anything anymore. It was just empty, like a hole, exactly like I showed you. There was a hole now. It couldn't be now slowly. This process has been going on now for 4 years. So now slowly, or maybe 4.5 years now. So slowly, words are back again, but they're not coming from memory or from things that I had studied. It's just now there is a knowing, and it can be talked about, but it's just nothing to it anymore. Back then, this was my whole life. This was my Margot Ridler identity. Margot Ridler was a constellation work facilitator, and she knew what she knew about it, and she was certain that this is how everything worked. It was very solid and very structured. So each belief, I have made a few of these things, so each belief, each idea, I'm a husband, I'm a wife, I'm a child, I'm a business owner, I'm a whatever, money, security, safety, protection, everything is a concept, and every concept is kind of a solid thing, and they get ripped to pieces in the same way the I, for me, got ripped to pieces until there was no I left anymore.